Hey guys, welcome back. 2 videos ago, I installed this new farmhouse apron sink. Because of that, I need to do a new countertop. So in my last video, I showed you guys how to condition and stain the Butcher Block countertop to get it ready to install, and today I'm going to be installing it finally. Now you can see the old countertop here. It's in pretty rough shape. This was actually oak flooring. Somebody made this, one of the previous homeowners, and it wasn't really finished well, so it's very rough. And the cutout for this sink doesn't match the old one, so it definitely needs to be replaced. I'm going to start today first by taking everything apart. I need to pull all the appliances out that are in the way of the counter, and then I can start pulling the countertop off of the cabinets. In this case, it was really easy because they just nailed this directly to the cabinets, straight down into them, so I could lift up and pull everything off. But I believe in most cases they use brackets underneath the cabinets to hold everything together, so you might have to go into the cabinets themselves and unscrew those brackets in order to get the countertop off without breaking anything. Now that I have everything exposed, I'm going to take this time to install a few brackets to hold the Butcher Block countertop down. I'll be putting a few on the sides of the cabinets as well as the front and back to make sure every edge of that Butcher Block countertop is securely held. Now in just a minute, I'm going to move on to cutting the Butcher Block and installing it, but wanted to just mention, like I said before, I've already stained and finished these in the previous video, so you can go check that out if you're interested, but I wanted to avoid all the fumes from the stain and the polyurethane inside the house where the kids are. This does mean that you might have to come back and touch up those ends where you cut, restain and seal it, but that's a whole lot less surface to stain inside the house, will make a lot less fumes than the entire countertop. Now you'll notice every time I go to cut on this or put a mark on the countertop, I'm using some masking tape. This will lower the amount of tear out and splinters from the cut and give you a cleaner cut, as well as all the marks you make will be able to be easily removed afterwards without leaving anything behind. Now I've got to attach the countertop to those brackets as well, and this is a lot easier if you're able to remove the drawer or anything that's in the way to screw these into place. Now, a part that's really important is cutting straight edges on this. I'm going to be using a guide for this, making sure everything's square first with my framing square, but then I'm coming in with a straight edge, clamping that down into place, so I know I'm getting a very precise straight edge with that circular saw. Now this is the most important cut right here. This is the one that's going to be going into the corner, and I need to make sure that this one's square and perfectly straight so that those two edges will butt up perfectly together. I'm going to do a quick dry fit inside, make sure that everything lines up, and it does, so I'm going to move on to joining these two sections together in that corner so that they are one solid piece instead of two separate ones. To join these two pieces together, I'm going to be using some biscuits inside this joint to align everything together. Then I'll flip the countertop over to the other side so the bottom is facing up, and I need to cut a few notches for some brackets to go in here to hold the countertop together. And again, even though this is the bottom, I'm going to put some tape down so I can make some marks on here, and then all the holes that I'm going to be drilling and chiseling out, it will keep it a lot cleaner. I'm going to start by using a Forstner bit to have a recess drilled down in for the brackets. Then I need to connect those two holes with a straight line where the bolt will go through, and then these particular brackets have a flat square plate, so I need to square up that hole on each side. Now it's time to assemble this. I'm going to put a little bit of wood glue on each side of those biscuits to hold this joint a little bit tighter, and then I can install those brackets. I'm going to be using an open end wrench to tighten these down. You don't have much space to reach in there and tighten that bolt, so this works perfectly for it. Now this joint is incredibly strong, but I would recommend lifting this countertop up with several people, just so then you support the weight of that countertop so it doesn't break that joint at all. Now I'm getting ready to cut out the hole for the sink, and for me this is the scariest part, because if I mess this up, it's going to be a lot of wasted time from having to refinish a new piece, plus all the money that you're going to have to invest in additional countertop pieces. It would just be a nightmare. So I'm gonna double check all of my work measurements, make sure everything's square before starting to cut. First step I'm gonna do is drill out the corners. I've got a Forstner bit, the exact diameter of the corner that I want. I need a rounded edge on this, so this gives me the perfectly smooth rounded edge that I'm looking for. And then I'm gonna come back in a little bit to cut the edges with a circular saw that gives me the straightest line out of all the saws that I have. And then I'll connect those. Whatever the circular saw can't cut, I'll use my jigsaw to finish it off. Again, I would recommend using a track saw or a straight edge to cut with your circular saw to get the smoothest, straightest line that you can, so you don't end up having to recut or make any mistakes. Now I'm so relieved to see that this turned out really well, nice and smooth cuts. I'm gonna sand this down real quick and add a wood conditioner sealer over top of this. This will help the stain absorb more evenly and not over absorb on those end grains. But I'm gonna move this inside now and finish off staining it and putting a couple coats of polyurethane on that as well once it's installed. Now the moment of truth, it looked good outside, all the measurements looked like I got it correct. I'm gonna install it now and see if it lines up with that sink perfectly or if I made a mistake. And it looks perfect, everything is working great. I'm gonna start screwing this down to the cabinet. Now this cabinet is horribly designed. It was probably original with the house when it was built in '66. The only way I can get into the cabinet is through this tiny door, and so I'm trying to get to those brackets inside. Not very easy. Hopefully you guys would have a much easier job with your cabinets, but that was a nightmare. Now I need to mount the sink faucet onto this countertop. So I'm gonna find the center of that sink, make sure everything's lined up, and I'm gonna drill a hole with the Forstner bit again. This works really well with wood. It doesn't splinter or tear up. If you've got a nice sharp bit, it will give you a very smooth finish. Now I'd recommend, once everything's installed, going back and staining and sealing any of the joints or places that you've cut, just to make sure no moisture soaks in there and that everything matches with the rest of the countertop. So I went back over with stain, and now I'm putting 3 or 4 coats of polyurethane over top of that. That will make sure that everything's sealed. You don't want any moisture getting into that wood. Then I'm going to come back with a little bit of silicone and go around the top of that sink. That will make sure no moisture gets behind that sink and gets into your cabinets. Alright guys, that just about finishes up the video for today. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you found this helpful, hit that like button down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And if you're interested in seeing any of these other videos, I'll leave them up on the screen. How to install a sink faucet, how to stain and seal Butcher Block countertops, or how to install a sink. You can find those videos now. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.